Hello students, welcome to PW OnlyIAS English channel. I'm Harpreet Singh here with the daily analysis of The Hindu from 23rd September 2024. Let's begin today's analysis. The topics that have been taken for today's analysis are: first, International Big Cat Alliance, India-ASEAN Review Trade Pact, Bombay High Court strikes down fact-checked unit aspect, editorial National Security Strategy. Let's begin with the analysis. So the first topic that we are covering is the International Big Cat Alliance. Now you would have seen for yourself the general studies paper for the civil services examination took place. You would have realized for yourself that the current affairs are a very, very essential ingredient of your preparation. Whatever we are doing over here, some news might be covered, let us say 1 or 2 days later, because there are more developments going on. So I request you all, whatever we are doing here, it is important not only for your preliminary examination, but also mains examination. So please understand it carefully, note it down, and revise it again and again. So, resuming again, International Big Cat Alliance, IBCA. Now, why it is in the news is because 4 countries have basically become members of IBCA. See, India, Nicaragua, Eswatini, and Somalia. Now, this is why the context has been. Now, let us see what it basically is. IBCA launched by the Prime Minister of India in 2023 at an event commemorating the 50 years of Project Tiger in India. Now, Project Tiger in India was basically targeted at protecting the tigers in India because their number were dwindling at a very rapid rate. So this particular initiative has been launched by our Honorable Prime Minister. Now, what is the objective behind this? The objective is to reach out to 97 range countries covering the natural habitat of the 7 big cats. What do you mean by 97 range countries? These are those countries where you find the 7 types of the big cats. Right? This is very important because in your preliminary examination, you might be asked that 87 range countries are there with respect to the 7 big cats. Then that would be wrong. It is 97 range countries. Range countries means where the presence of these 7 cats are present. Yeah. So 97 range countries covering the natural habitat of 7 big cats. Now, what are these 7 big cats? Tiger, lion, leopard, snow leopard, cheetah, jaguar, and puma. These are the 7 big cats. Now you have to remember one thing, that out of these 7, only 5 are found in India. 2 are not found in India. The 2 being jaguar and puma, I have written it here, not found in India. So this is something that can be asked. Like for example, if they can ask you in the preliminary examination that IBCA has launched an initiative which covers the 7 big cats which are all present in India. No, they are not present. Only 5 are present. Clear? So let's move ahead. 24 countries, including India, have consented to be members of IBCA. All United Nations members are eligible for becoming the members of IBCA. This is a basic understanding. Now comes the next part. IBCA governance, how it is going to take place. It is governed by a General Assembly made up of all the member nations, an elected member nation council, and a secretariat. What is the funding? Now, how is IBCA going to be funded? Because it is going to involve a lot of initiatives taking place. So, IBCA has secured Government of India's initial support because it is something that is being promoted by the Government of India. So, Government of India has provided the initial funding. That is of 150 crore for 5 years from 2023, 24 to 27, 28. So, Government of India is going to provide the support of 150 crores for the duration of 5 years. The headquarters is going to be in India. Now, as I've mentioned, this topic itself is important for preliminary and mains, right? Now, I have here over listed a chart which basically tells you about These 7 species, their scientific name, their IUCN status, sites, and in what schedule does it come under the India's Wildlife Protection Act. This becomes important again from prelims because they might ask you that Puma and jaguar are mentioned in, let us say, Schedule 1 of India's Wildlife Protection Act, and you know that they are not in India, so they would not be mentioned in the Wildlife Protection Act. So that is why NA not applicable. So this, just observe this chart because this is important from the aspect of your prelim examination. Also in your mains, they can be asked what is IBCA or what are the initiatives that are taken by the government in order to conserve the wildlife, flora and fauna for that matter. In that case, you might list such type of examples and quote in your mains examination. Let's move ahead. The second topic that has been in the news and has been mentioned repeatedly, it has been mentioned in your news articles also, and along with it is mentioned in the one of the editorials. So it is very, very important to analyze. Please write the heading that deals with India ASEAN Review Trade Pact at Laos. Now this is the major topic. Before we move ahead towards understanding this, please understand, we need to go to the basics and a little bit understand what ASEAN is. ASEAN means Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Now, it was established on August 8, 1967 in Bangkok, Thailand by signing the Bangkok Declaration. By signing the Bangkok Declaration. And there were few countries who signed. There are now 10 members, but you will see there were few countries who signed. Who were those founding member countries? Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These were the 5 countries who initially signed the Bangkok Declaration, and these were the founding members, right? Next is chairmanship. Now, the chairmanships keeps on rotating at present every year based on the alphabetical order on which the countries are named. Next is secretariat at Jakarta in Indonesia. Now, this is a basic detail. At present, if we see, who all are the members? There are 10 members of ASEAN, right? 10 members of ASEAN. Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Now, this becomes very important not only from your prelims but also for your mains examination. For prelims, why? They might list few countries and tell you which among the following are the members of the ASEAN. They might list India also here, right? They might list India also. You'll say yes, because you're talking about ASEAN, India would also be a member here. No, these are the 10 member states, right? So Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. These are the 10 members of the ASEAN. Let's move ahead now. Now comes the topic of India and ASEAN, why this particular topic was mentioned. See, there is an existence of AITIGA. What is this? It is basically ASEAN India Trade in Goods Agreement. In order to promote trade with the Southeast Asian nations, India has signed this agreement with the ASEAN. Now, it came into effect on Jan 1, 2010 and established one of the largest free trade global areas. Now, in order to boost trade between this group and India, this agreement was basically signed, and this is what was being discussed in the meeting also that was held. So remember, AITIGA, that is ASEAN India Trade in Goods Agreement. Now next comes, when we talk about the relationship with respect to ASEAN and India, we all know that we have historical cultural relationship. That is absolutely fine, we all know. But if we talk with respects to the economy, we realize there are certain issues that are tilting towards ASEAN. Why? We have a trade deficit. We have a trade deficit with ASEAN, which has increased from 4.98 billions in 2010-11 to 38 billions. Now, what do you mean by trade deficit that is taking place? See, supposingly this is India, this is ASEAN. Now, you are exporting goods worth 5 billion, let us say 1 billion, or let us say 1 rupee, rupee 1, while ASEAN is exporting, let us say to India, rupees 10. Now, do you realize that the export is rupee 1 and import for India is rupees 10? That means importing that is being done is more. So there is a deficit of rupees 9 with respect to India. It is unfavorable in favor of India because we are exporting less but importing more, but it is favorable for ASEAN. So from India's concern, this deficit is there. So that is why this deficit has increased from 4.98 billion from 2010-11 to 38.4 billion from 23-24. This is a point of concern for India also. That is why these meetings are held, so that we can upgrade, renegotiate the AITIGA agreements that have taken place. Now let's move ahead. Now, key points of the meet that was held at Laos, right? India's Asian relation are very, very important. They have repeatedly been asked in your mains examination. They would be asked again and also in your prelims. So please understand this. What was the discussion that took place during the meeting? First is trade. See, the two-way trade between India and ASEAN has increased to close to $101 billion. That is itself a huge amount. But again, we see that it is India's 8th largest trade partner right now. Next is FDI. Now, India has contributed close to $5.6 billion FDI to ASEAN. Next is a detailed action plan was finalized that what should be done, and further some issues are there. They are also going to be finalized and be implemented by 2025. So how we can boost the trade relations, what are the problems that are arising. So this detailed action plan has been finalized. There are certain issues which would be again in further discussions resolved. Next is need to upgrade AITIGA. Now you yourself realize that why India is voicing its opinion with respect to upgradation. See, we realize that there are trade deficit issues. Now, there are certain things that are favorable in favor of ASEAN. India allows their exports to come, that is, which is import for India, very easily. But there are certain restrictions that are imposed when we are exporting the goods. So that is why the terms of conditions and negotiations need to take place so that there is balance with respect to the trade relations between ASEAN and India. That is why India is voicing its opinion that we need an upgradation of the AITIGA. That is why, one more point, specific demands have been made by India. First, non-reciprocity issue. Non-reciprocity, that means India is allowing the exports of ASEAN to come to India. That means import for India. But similar things have not been, let us say, there is no reciprocity with that respect from the side of ASEAN. They are restricting the imports from India. That is what India exports. That is why India says we need to upgrade the agreement so that these problems that are there should be resolved. Now, one more thing is there. India has raised a opinion that the rules of origin have to be implemented strictly. So what do you mean by the rules of origin? Please understand. The rules means this word itself can be asked in your prelims. With respect to rules of origin, what do you understand by the following statements? So they might give you with respect to trade, military, confusing statements. So these small words have been mentioned in your newspapers also. It is a request to please understand them carefully. Rules of origin means the rules to attribute a country of origin to the product in order to determine the economic nationality. In order to understand from where this particular product has originated, that is what is the rules of origin. You have to strictly adhere to it. Now, that strict adherence is very important because, for example, I'll give you, if you go to United States, over there, if certain products are being, let us say, going to United States, now they might have been manufactured in, let us say, Pakistan or Vietnam, then going to some other country, labeling being done there, and then going to United States. Now that creates an issue for what? The country where it is being sold, because we do not know the correct origin of the country. That is why India is specifying if some products are being coming from ASEAN, we need to very precisely know where this product originated. That is important for our economic security as well as having trustworthy trade relations. That is why rules of origin and strict adherence to them is very, very important. This was with respect to the India-ASEAN relations. Now let us move on to a very important topic, that is Bombay High Court strikes down centre's amended IT rules. The revised rules violate the right to equality and freedom and speech guaranteed by the Constitution, says the tiebreaker judge, and they empower the centre to set up fact check unit. Now please understand, this fact check unit, FCU, is a main bone of contention that is over here. Before we go ahead and understand what were the amended rules and why the court basically struck them down, we need to understand what is fact check unit. So we'll understand fact check unit, then we'll understand what were the rules that were amended, and then we'll understand what was the need to basically strike down those amended rules. Let's move ahead. Now this becomes very important for your polity section also, GS paper 2. Fact check unit, please see. Fact check unit was established in 2019 under the PIB, the Public Information Bureau, where you generally see the dissemination of news that is being done on a continuous basis, right? It was established in 2019 under the PIB. The objective was of acting as a deterrent and to the creators and dissemination of false news or misinformation. That means fact check unit was established within the Public Information Bureau, PIB, so that it can basically act as a deterrent to the people who are spreading fake news and misinformation via the social media and various other, majorly the social media and the digital platforms. So it was like a deterrent because it will tell that this news is fake. So mandate and operation, what was given to that? Fact check unit is mandated to counter the misinformation on government policies, initiatives and schemes, either suo motu or under a reference via complaint. What does suo motu means? By itself or by a complaint. For example, the FCU is basically checking if there are certain comments, videos, digital platforms or articles digitally are being created, which basically tend to create misinformation or fake news with respect to the government policies and schemes. Then it would be pointed out by the fact check unit that this is wrong. Now, this can be done suo motu. Suo motu means that the fact check unit, if it itself comes across such an article, it might itself mark it as misinformation or fake news, or some other person can complain to FCU that this article is spreading fake news, and then FCU can take the necessary action. It provides people with an easy avenue to report suspicious and questionable information pertaining to Government of India. That means if people feel that some fake news or wrong information is being spread with respect to any government policy, then people can have an avenue that they can basically report to the fact check unit under the PIB, and they will tell that this information is wrong, right? Now, this was the original mandate and what was expected of the fact check unit, which was working under the PIB. Now we need to understand what was done or what amendment was made by the central government which created certain issues according to the judicial or judiciary, why it stuck it down. Let's see. What was the amendment? Now see, amendment to the IT rules 2021 was made, which is basically the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Amendment Rules 2023. Now these particular guidelines basically provided that certain changes have to be made. Now, what were the changes? Please understand. The amendments changed the status of FCU. How? See, earlier FCU operated under the PIB for 4 years. It operated under 4 years. That means it was doing its task like either receiving something suo motu, or let us say people complaining. So it will just say that it is a fake news, nothing else, right? So that people are aware that some news is fake or misinformation is being spread. That was it. Now what the amendment does is, the amendment granted legal authority and power to enforce legal obligation on platforms like Facebook and Twitter. Now this legal authority was not there earlier on. Now this amendment empowered or gave some legal power to it that it can take action against Facebook, Twitter and other digital platforms. Earlier, it was merely pointing out that this some information is wrong. Now it can take legal action against these bodies, or let us say platforms like Facebook or Twitter, and tell them to take it down, or let us say take action against them. Second is redesignated as fact check unit of the central government. Now this is like elevation of the status of this particular body from merely being a fact checker under the PIB to a fact checked unit of the central government. Now, this was like an empowering this particular body with checking of any misinformation or fake information that is being in, let us say, in any digital world or social media or digital media. It can take strict action against them from a legal basis because it is being redesignated as a fact check unit of the central government itself, not merely working under the PIB. So this was a real empowering of the fact check unit. Now what the problem arises, please understand. Yeah, one more thing. There was one more clause, that was the safe harbor condition. This is also one more point which basically created a little bit of problems. It basically marked that the content marked by FCU as fake or misleading will be taken down by the online intermediaries. Yes, this is in accordance with the empowerment of the FCU. That means if FCU marks that this particular article is misinformation or fake, it will have to be pulled down by various platforms like, let us say, YouTube for that matter, or for that matter, Twitter or Facebook. Now, this is the provision or the empowerment with respect to the legal authority that was given. Now, let's see and move ahead. Reasons for striking down the amendment. Please understand. It ultra-wires the IT Act. What do you mean by ultra-wires? Ultra-wires means that it is going beyond the scope of the Act or what the mandate of the particular Information Technology Act was. See, it does not comply with the IT Act 2000, nor was it laid down before the Parliament. If you're making such major changes, it is important that you need to take permission because you are making changes to an act. It was not laid down before the Parliament. It requires parliamentary approval. So itself, it is ultra-vires, going against the spirit of the constitution if certain major changes are being made. So first thing was, the court was of the opinion that it is ultra-violence of the IT Act. First, because it was not laid down or the permission of the parliament was not taken. Because you all know that if laws are passed, it requires the assent of the parliament and then the president approves it and then it becomes an act, right? So it was, in this case, it was not done. Next is violation of Article 14 and Article 19. See, the Article 14 talks about equality before law, and Article 19, under Article 19(1), subsection A, freedom of speech and expression, and Article 1, subarticle G, freedom of practice of profession or business. Now, people can write articles from a sarcastic or an ironic manner also. If the FCU believes that this article is misleading, though it might be an outcome of some creativity, it can be pulled down without any asking or whether, let us say, any debate. Now that creates a, let us say, a problem where freedom of speech and expression is being hurt. That is why the court has mentioned that it goes against the Article 14 and 19. Next is vagueness of fake, false and misleading. Please understand, the word fake, we can understand that might not be in accordance with what is actually there. But when we talk about false and misleading, it is very subjective, or it depends upon the interpretation of a person. For someone subjective, let us say, if something is subjective, let us say false or misleading, something might be misleading for someone, but might not be misleading for the person who's saying that. So the vagueness is there because misuse of power can be done when these vague words are used. So that is why the courts have also of the opinion that these words are very vague and it can be misused while striking down certain content that might be marked as fake or false. Next is inconsistent treatment of digital and print media. Now, do you realize that this is basically targeted at the digital media? Similar things have not been done with respect to the print media or the newspapers. So it says it goes against the right to equality itself because here two parties, let us say digital media and print media are there. Why such rules are being imposed on the digital media but not the print media? So that means there is level of discrimination that would be going against the equality before law. That is why Article 14 violation is there. Next is inadequate safeguards. The center's argument is that decision by the fact-checked unit would be challenged in a constitutional court as deemed inadequate. Now you imagine that if certain thing is marked as false or fake, one has to go to the court to get it resolved. That to a constitutional court to get it resolved itself is a very tedious task. Now, it raises a lot of complexity with respect to these cases being resolved. As we all know that Lakhs of cases are pending in the High Court. Along with it, 84,000 plus cases are pending in the Supreme Court. So we realize that if this will further burden the court or the judiciary also for one thing or being marked as, let us say, fake, which might be subject to the interpretation, which would lead to what? Cases being piled in the court, and which does not give adequate safeguards, or certain bodies are not there which could resolve at a local level. One has to go to the court. So that was also one of the reasons why the amendment has been struck down. Now, this was the article that I mentioned earlier on. This IT rules amendment is very, very important for your examination. It can be asked again in your prelims and in your mains examination, because again, it is very important with respect to the rights of the people. Now comes the very important aspect, which is the editorial. Today's editorial is rather very interesting. It talks about India needs a national security strategy. Now see, if we'll understand what national security strategy is, plus please understand that in the introductory passage, the writer basically mentions that India is having problems with respect to the neighbors. We all know that Pakistan is an enemy country. China is always at the border, in the view that possibly it can create certain issues for India. So we have both the neighbors which are not in friendly terms, or we can call them as enemy nations. On the other hand, we see that Bangladesh is in a chaotic situation where Islamic parties have been, which were earlier banned, again into mainstream. Now there is a possibility that those parties will collaborate with who? Let us say China also and Pakistan also, and ISI in Pakistan is going to have a remote handling with respect to the Bangladesh situation of politics. Now we realize that we have neighborhood issues. Along with it, we know that we have economic goals. We want to see India from a perspective of a developed country by 2047 as aimed by the government of India. Along with it, we are coming across global problems. We see conflicts in the around Israel. We see conflicts around Ukraine and Russia crises are going on. We see crises in countries across Africa. We see diseases and health issues being rising in, let us say, Congo. Mpox is spreading in a large scale in the Congo basin. So we see all these going to impact the economic and the geopolitics also. In this context, the author talks about that we need a national security strategy. Now, the thing comes into our mind is, what do you mean by national security strategy? Now understand that. What is National Security Strategy, or NSS? It is a policy framework for the country to meet the basic needs and security concerns of the citizens and address the external and internal threats to the country. That means, what are the needs of the people? Let us say economic and even the social needs. Along with that, that means you are addressing the needs and the security concerns of the citizens. Why security concerns? If we know that the government is strong, the military is strong, the people can work peacefully. That is why you realize that people who are staying in, let us say, very regions where a lot of conflict is there, it basically hinders their development and also raises concern with respect to the security of a region. So what is important is that policy framework that addresses the needs, what are the needs and the security of the country, and resolve the issues of the external and internal threats. Now, this is a policy framework which is the national security strategy. Clear? Now, what is the scenario? Currently, India lacks the NSS. Thus, a NSS provides a clear vision of the path that India must take in pursuit of its national vision. So what the author basically tries to say is, we need a national security strategy so that what the goals of India are in the future, those can be addressed. Now, what a national security strategy will do, we'll understand that after a few minutes. Let us understand what the editorial is talking about here in brief. Now, please understand, as I told you over here, that this paragraph basically talks about the need of the national security strategy. As we move ahead, we realize that the thinker or the author basically talks about that national security is not a single simple word or dealing with, let us say, military. No. It is an umbrella term. It is a holistic term. It deals with economy. It deals with the social infrastructure. It deals with the defense forces and various other dimensions. So the writer itself mentions that it is an umbrella term. As we move ahead, we are basically talking about the author mentioning about various countries like the US and UK, how they perceive what national security is, NSS or security strategy is. And she gives the examples of United States and United Kingdom. As we move ahead, in this particular paragraph, we realize that he tries to explain it further, the umbrella term of national security strategy. He says that NSS will bring defense, finance, investment, and climate change into one fold. We need to realize that all these things are very important ingredient with respect to the strategy, policy making, and security of India. So that means we need to take it into one whole and strategize as a whole. That is why this NSS is required. So that is why an umbrella term also. As we move ahead, the thinker talks about the concept multi-alignment. She takes it from a very different perspective. She says that multi-alignment today, why we are talking about that, we are aligning with various different groups based on a need. He says that this is a need of the hour because friends who are capable and willing to back up and help in the need of the hour is what is multi-alignment according to the thinker. Right? That is why we have so many blocks and counter blocks on which we are not completely aligning with them, but we are interacting with them based on our needs, so that if we have certain conflict with one block or a certain set of people, we might take the help of the other in order to resolve our problems. That is what is the basic issue, and that is very important from the national security strategy perspective also. Second is threat prioritization. You need to prioritize what are the possible threats that India might face, either with respect to the energy, either with respect to the possible enemies that are there, with respect to the geopolitics, or with respect to climate change or ecology, and various other dimensions. So we need to prioritize what are the threats and we should work towards resolving them. Next is transparency. Now, transparency over here in this policy making is very important. Why it is important is that it is mentioned in the editorial also that countries like Pakistan, they have fundings for various aspects, but they direct in towards policy that is against India. That is why over in Pakistan, you do not have transparency in the policy making. While in case when we're talking about India, we need to realize that we need to have a transparent policy mechanism where how the fundings are being used should be there in a transparent manner so that all holistic sectors are covered. Next is, then in the last, she is talking about the holistic nature of NSS. This is again a reiteration of the topic that has been mentioned, that national security strategy is not simply confining to economy or defense, but also it is an umbrella term. So this was a repetition of what theme she had repeated earlier also. Now moving ahead, if we have to go ahead, we need to understand what shall the national security strategy do. Now understand, this is an add-on to what I have added. National security strategy would enable the identification of the critical infrastructure. What is the critical infrastructure? Systems, assets, or networks important for the functioning of society and economy. Bridges, roads, dams, government infrastructure, buildings. So these things are very important for the society and economy. The NSS will basically enable in its document to identify them and how to secure them. Let us say various in electronic information of, let us say, Aadhaar being stored in various servers and all, they need to be protected. So all these things become very important. Ecological degradation and climate change. NSS must identify that impact of national security and how to cope with them. Ecological degradation and climate change again is very important because it will lead to various migrations taking place, various war taking place, and all these things will be there. So that is why we need to integrate these concepts also along with our policy making. Trade-off between the enhanced security and citizen rights. Please need to understand, more the security enhancements are increased, there will be a possibility that it might hinder the rights of the people also. So we need to be very particular that when it comes between national security and the rights, there will be a trade-off. Trade-off means that one will be more, one will be less. Because the security of the country is more important, it might some way lead to, let us say, invade in the aspect of privacy of the citizens also. That is why we have talking about documents like national protection bills with respect to the data protection bills and all are there. We need to understand can have to be certain exceptions if we need to protect a country from various threats. So trade-off is also going to be listed over here, and what is the standard operating procedure would be listed under the national security strategy. Next is NSS media and fake news. Now, it is also important for the NSS to list to spread the information of fake news spreading in between the public, because that leads to creation of various riots, various problems within the country taking place. So then again, that means taking or resolving the issues of the media and fake news also. That is also very important over here under the national security strategy. Next is holistic approach encompassing domestic, external, military, and armed threats is a very important ingredient over here. So holistically covering all these dimensions. So this was the topic of today's discussion. This is my QR code for the PPT or PDF that you can get over here. Along with it, we'll be having various other discussions. We'll be adding in the coming days the PYQs almost every day, even a mains question. We'll be adding the prelim shortboard tidbit section also. We'll be taking your feedback also and adding them soon. So don't need to worry about that. We'll keep on improving day by day and make it as holistic as possible without compromising the quality and without making it lengthy. We have to be very particular about that. So coming to the first slide, this was today's current affairs from 23rd September 2024. I hope you enjoyed, you will learn something. And me, Harpreet Singh, signing off from today. PW OnlyIAS will continue tomorrow and take you to the beautiful world of the current affairs. Take care and Jai Hind.